Hello, this is Tim. I want to ask a simple question. What is Remembrance Day? What are we actually remembering? Well, many things. We're remembering those men and women who died during the wars. But this tradition goes back to the armistice which took place in 1918 and ended the First World War. And the First World War was extraordinary. 12 years after the brutality of the Boer War, so many young men volunteered to fight in France. So many. At one point there were 10,000 a day volunteering. There was, of course, a magnificent recruiting effort. There were the famous adverts by Reginald Leet, I think his name was, Reginald Leet. But the picture of Kitchener pointing, saying, "Your country needs you." Books like The Riddle of the Sands, peer pressure, the pressure of society to man up, to be a man. It was peer pressure, for example, that drove the painter Stanley Spencer to enlist in 1915. But there was also the feeling that these people were doing the right thing, that this was a just war. There was a feeling that people might feel left out if they didn't join. The poet Rook says, "It will be hell to be in it, and it will be hell to be out of it." By 1916, the country joined many of the other European countries and introduced conscription. But what's extraordinary is this idea of volunteering spreads over the whole of Europe. Even in Germany, where there was a tradition of conscription, I think 143,000 people volunteered for the Prussian units alone. In France, there's 187 people volunteering in the first few months. The Polish legionaries, huge numbers of volunteers. And let's not forget the 250,000 young boys who volunteered in Britain to fight, many of them as young as 14 or 15. These men and boys and the women, they gave their todays for our tomorrows. And why did they do it? Yes, there was peer pressure. Yes, there was a feeling that they were involved in a just war. Yes, there was perhaps an idea of escapism. The idea that they would be home before Christmas. Maybe, for many young men, it was an idea of a gap year, a sort of gap year from hell. And they met devastation and carnage. It traumatized not only our country, but an entire continent. People were given over afterwards to seances, to trying to contact their dead loved ones. But why did they do it? They felt patriotic. They felt called by their country. And what have they given us? They've given us this image of patriotism, this image of sacrifice. They've also given us, incidentally, the most extraordinary vocabulary. The word that I'm rather keen on at the moment, banter, goes back to the First World War. There's also the word plonk for wine, which is a mispronunciation of the French word vin blanc. Over the top, to be over the top, to be excessive, literally to go over the trench. Snipers, the little birds were called snipes, And a sniper was somebody who could take out one of those little birds. Literally bum fodder, the sort of paper that you can really only use in the loo. Too much paperwork, bureaucracy, the sort of thing that I think Mrs. May rather enjoyed in the Home Office and certainly thought was going to solve all our problems in number 10. I would like to leave the last words to Wilfred Owen. Wilfred Owen writes a really shocking piece at one point. He says, he's talking about a man who's pulled out of a trench. The sentry's body, he says, was dredged up for dead until he whined, "Oh, sir, my eyes, I'm blind, I'm blind, I'm blind," he says. And the poem finishes, "I see your lights, but ours have long gone out." And this was a conflict that devastated our country, it devastated Europe. We should not forget it. And a Remembrance Sunday is about remembering that devastation, but also that sacrifice, that honour, that resolution, that bravery.